So these are all my fair walls. See, they're all naked. There's no artwork, photography, or anything on them. So I need to hang that today. So that's what I'm working on. We're setting up for the fair. I think I won a ribbon. I know I won third place on my booby koozie. All right, anybody have any questions? Things we want to talk about? I know Rachel will. She just got on. I know we had people concerned with 1157. That was withdrawn, so we don't have to worry about it anymore. I know we had questions in regards to LA County Sheriff and if they're still taking 6 months to schedule a lockout. LA County Sheriff, with the exception of, here, let me give you LA County Sheriff's lockout schedule. Okay, hang on. LA County Sheriff lockout schedule. If you're in Long Beach or Lancaster, they are taking 60 days. So LA County Sheriff is currently taking, well, we're early because there's my alarm saying, you got 1 minute, run. So I'll wait to give all that wonderful information until it's noon and we're all on here. I'm at the fair. I know Arlene's going to ask, Patti, where are you? See all these walls? See them all? It's my job to cover them with all the photography and the art. So that's what I'm doing today.
You have a big job ahead of you.
Yeah, I got some helpers. But yeah, we got to make it all pretty. And I have a plan to go deep sea fishing, not this weekend, but next weekend. So I got to get all this done. So if anybody's bored and they want to come hang artwork at the San Bernardino County Fair, come on. I'm just playing. So I do have information and updates, and I see there's a lot of people getting on now. So we'll let everybody get in. And then I'll give you the sheriff lockout update that I have on how long it's taking sheriffs process out. I can speak, I promise. We're going to talk about how long it is taking the sheriffs to process a lockout request on a writ of possession. Why are we going to talk about that? It is a delayed process. It was hugely delayed up to a year ago in LA County. It was taking over 6 months to get a writ of possession executed. The sheriff was so backed up. I had a writ of possession. They're good for 6 months, and then you have to get them reissued from the court. I had a writ expire while it was at the sheriff's office. So I had to get it reissued and then resubmit it to the sheriff. And when I did that, they put it back in, get in line again. Put me in the back of the line. Not good. So just so you know, LA County has increased their processing time to schedule a lockout from the time they receive sheriff instructions and the writ of possession. What we're seeing for a process time for LA County sheriffs, and they are the ones with the biggest delays right now, is if you are in Long Beach or Lancaster, it is taking 60 days. Okay, Long Beach and Lancaster are taking 60 days to get to the sheriff lockout to have them execute the writ of possession and get those people out of your property. Everywhere else is taking about 30 to 45 days. Okay, so we're no longer at that 6 month mark. We're no longer at the 4 month mark. It's actually happening a lot faster than it was. I will say that San Bernardino County is still running at about 15 to 20 days. Okay, LA is taking about 45 with the exception of the city of Lancaster and Long Beach. Those are taking 2 months, 60 days to get the lockout done. Yay to San Bernardino. I'll keep my mouth shut. Riverside's going pretty quickly too. Just giving you guys a heads up because I know that's something that we all wonder about is, you know, once we get the eviction done, how long is it going to take the sheriff to come? It's not taking 6 months in LA County any longer. We're looking more like 30 to 45 days with the exceptions of Long Beach. I lost it. I know it starts with an L. Hang on. Lancaster, Long Beach and Lancaster. So Long Beach and Lancaster are taking about 60 days. Everybody else is taking about 30 to 45. So really good news compared to where we were a year ago with the lockout process in LA County. It was a mess. It was bad, real bad. All right. Anybody have things they want to talk about today? Throw them at me. Let's get into them. I find it hard to believe nobody has nothing. Somebody always
Patti,
has. There we go.
I do have something. Question for you. I know you previously mentioned not to sign rental documents in advance. Are you allowed to go over them at least in advance? Because that's what we would do, just because on move-in day, it's, the tenants the residents are always stressed out. They're moving, they're tired, they're not listening. Like, I would always schedule it beforehand, and we would even sign beforehand. So is that okay, or is that something you would do, or would you just say you can go over all the material and then just wait to sign on day of?
Pay attention. And I see Chris is in here, so he's going to correct me if I'm wrong, I promise, okay? Listen up. Once you approve an applicant and you want to take that holding deposit, the holding deposit can be the security deposit. It could be the security deposit and the first month's rent in full. Whatever the holding deposit agreement amount is, paying attention. Okay. The holding deposit is the legal document that covers you until the lease is signed. Stay with me. Once the lease is signed, the holding deposit becomes trash, and all that money that you were holding gets applied to the lease. Paying attention? If they
Okay.
cancel a lease for any reason, you can't collect any money. Oh, remember your lease contract doesn't say if you back out, you'll be held for date. No, it starts on that day and goes forward from there. So if the tenant says, never mind, we don't want the house, and they've already signed the lease and not the holding deposit, you have to give all the money back and you can't keep a dime. That's why we don't sign leases in advance. Once a lease is signed, if they back out, you can't charge them daily holdover damages for all the time you held it off the property. A holding deposit is a separate agreement that allows you to charge per diem damages if they back out and don't sign the lease. Once the lease is signed, the holding deposit is trash.
Okay,
So
got it.
that's why I tell you, yes, they can review it until they're blue in the face. They can't e-sign it or sign it with pen and ink until the move-in day. That's my theory.
Okay, got it.
Yes, you cash the holding deposit. That's tangible funds. Deposit those tangible funds. Make sure it's a good certified check. Okay? Hope that made sense.
Yes, that makes sense. And I think it was Arlene who had previously asked a question, and I don't think we ever got to it. She had asked, with certified funds, can you deposit them beforehand? I think that's what she had asked. I don't want to put words in anyone's mouth, but can you deposit it beforehand? Because then how do you know if it ends up, if it's like a fraudulent or whatever, like it's not.
Hold on. Everybody, I need you to get in my brain really quick, okay?
Oh, yeah, she did ask it. Yes.
I know.
I just saw her
I
message.
need you guys to all get in my brain, okay? A holding deposit is a separate contract, okay? It says in a holding deposit agreement that you, landlord, can charge the tenant daily per diem if they back out, okay? From the time they sign that agreement to the time they back out in writing, okay? Yes, you want to deposit those funds. Yes, you want to touch that money. Put it in your account. Make sure it's good money. I don't care how you collected it. Personal check, I don't advise. But take that money, deposit it, cash it. You can do that. You're legal. Okay. You're fine with the holding deposit agreement. Once the lease is signed, all that money that you were holding, whether it be the security deposit amount or the first month's rent or both, then get applied to the lease. And the holding deposit agreement becomes trash. Okay? So your lease now controls. Why
So,
we don't want to pre-sign leases is because if you landlord have to back out, maybe all of a sudden you got in a fight with your husband and you're getting a divorce. And now you don't want them to move in because you need to move in. You can back out before they sign the lease and not be held accountable for the term of the tenancy with a holding deposit agreement.
What I was asking Patty was, you said on the day that you do your inspection
Mhm.
and before you give them the keys, that's when you sign the lease
Mhm.
with the funds. But what I was asking was, can I
always
ask for the
take-
funds prior to
I
and
always
cash it and wait
I
a
always-
couple of days and then do that? That's what I wanted to know.
I always take the holding deposit and have them sign a holding deposit agreement. And I want, this is my business practice, the security deposit in full and the first month's rent in full. Because I'm going to prorate the second month's rent. I want a full month's rent up front at hello.
Okay,
That
so
way,
that's
if
how
I
you know
made a
it's
bad
good.
decision,
Okay.
right? That way, if I made a bad decision, I got plenty of money to deal with. Okay. Just talking out loud. So that's how
That's
I do it.
smart. Okay.
And I deposit that money, I cash that money, I make sure the money's good. I may hold the property for 3 weeks, I may hold it for a month until they sign the lease contract. But they're signing the lease on the day I'm giving them possession and they're moving in. Okay. I do not pre-sign leases, even if I'm doing a turn where the new tenant's coming in and moving in behind them. You know why? Because if that tenant that's exiting doesn't leave and that new tenant has a signed lease, guess what you have to do, landlord? You have to put that new incoming tenant in a hotel at your expense because you have to provide them a habitable dwelling. Ooh. So that can get very expensive for you, landlord, if you have to put the tenant in a hotel while you're waiting to evict the person that didn't leave.
I would also say deposit it, but don't spend it. Because
A security deposit is the tenant's money at the end of the day. It doesn't belong to the landlord and it shouldn't be spent.
no, but especially the holding deposit, because if
You
for
may
some
have
reason
to
you
give it
can't
back.
deliver it, you may have to give it back.
Exactly.
And you won't be able to charge a per diem.
If you can't perform and provide them a habitable dwelling, then you cancel and they get all their money back. That's how that works. You don't get to charge them if you cancel. Wouldn't that be great? We'd have a little racket going on the side. No, I'm kidding. But if you cancel the agreement on the holding deposit, you landlord cannot charge per diem. You can only charge them if they cancel. Okay? But it gives you an out in the event something happens. There's a flood, a fire, a God only knows. You know, it's property management. Anything can happen. But yeah, you always want to make sure you touch the money. You have the money tangible money. All right. Next question. What do we got? Because that was a little too easy. It's getting breezy in here. I may have to put on my sweater.
Wait, I had an easy one. I had it written down somewhere. What's the name of the app that puts the date on the pictures?
What's the name of the app?
Timestamp.
Timestamp. Okay.
Timestamp.
Yeah, I've been using it a lot. I really like it because it also
Thank
puts
you.
address.
Teamwork, folks.
Because Chris, I appreciate it. Today, before the meeting, I went and put the new LAHD updated
Because of Chris?
because of Chris, and I used my timestamp to take a picture of it because they'll tear it down.
Yep. They always do. I love that we're all able to help each other out and say, hey, did you know this came out? Hey, did you know this is new? Hey, I love that. I wish when I was managing property on a daily, 65 hours a week, that they had something like this back then, because it makes it so much easier, when you have someone you can ask. There was something else I wanted to talk to you guys about that recently came about. And for the life of me, I can't remember. We talked about sheriff processing times. We talked about holding deposit agreements and how important those are versus signing a lease. We used to have the theory that is once we get the lease signed, we're golden. Let me tell you guys, once the lease gets signed, your ass is on the hook. Okay? You're looking at it in a wrong perspective. Once that lease is signed, you just became completely responsible. Okay? So remember, it's a holding deposit that helps protect us until the lease is signed. And if you have to charge the tenant per diem, you're going to allocate that the same way you would do a disposition of security deposit. Within 21 days with their full accounting of what they were charged for, but you can't charge them for advertising and things like that. You can only charge them per diem. So daily rent damages, that's it. That's all you get out of a holding deposit agreement, which is much more than what you get out of a lease, which is absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. Remember that. How many times have I collected on a tenant's holding deposit agreement in 30 years? Twice. Only twice. And let me tell you, I had a scary one once. I was squeezing my cheeks. Okay. Landlord calls me and says, "Hey, Patti, something's happened in my personal life and I need to pull my house off the market. I'm no longer going to be listing it for rent. Are those people moving in?" And I was like, "You mean the people that are moving from out of the state?" "Yes, they're still moving in." She's like, "Call them and tell them the house is no longer available." And I'm like, "Oh God." So I did. It was horrible. I felt so bad. You know what they told me? "Oh, we found something else anyway." You know that easy button that sits on the corner of your desk? Hit it. Hit it. How I was able to get the owner out of that is the tenant signed a holding deposit agreement. See how that worked? The only thing you got to be careful with, and you guys, you need to understand this. Don't think that this is an excuse or a caveat or a tool. We'll use all the words here for you, landlord. Hold on, I want to choose my words carefully. To make a decision later down the road that you really don't want them as tenants anyway, and you're going to cancel and give them their money back and let them go. Doesn't work that way. If you do things like that, you're most likely making yourself susceptible to a discrimination lawsuit. No joke. Okay? So if you genuinely have a problem, a flood of you have to move back in, and I mean it, a genuine problem. You want to use that holding deposit and refund all their money, but don't use this as a way to try it before you buy it kind of thing. You know, this isn't dating. Once you make a decision, you're committed. Okay? Once you approve them, you signed the marriage certificate when you approved them. Okay? So don't use a holding deposit to get rid of somebody that you don't like their attitude or whatever it may be that could be considered discrimination, which is anything in the state of California. Right? There's a fly buzzing around here eyeballing my lunch, and I'm not having that. I don't share with flies. For an ADU, I see questions. Hello, Patti. What if you sign the lease and give them the key the day before and they start moving in the day after? If you own the property yourself, it's a risk. Okay? If you don't own the property and you do it for profit, in other words, you have a management company and it's easier for you to have them pre-sign the lease, for the day before, and you meet them out there the day before and give them the keys and everything's signed for starting the next day, it creates all kinds of problems. It could be considered, don't freak out when I start throwing this at you, it could be considered fraud. It could be considered embezzlement. Want me to keep going? If you're managing property for profit, you move them in on the day that the lease is to be signed. I know it's a hectic day, but that's the day you do it. You don't do it any other time. You can't do it any other time. It could be considered embezzlement or fraud. Look at it this way. If you let them in a day early, did you collect 1 day early's rent for the landlord or no? Oh, that makes sense. That'd be fraud. How about if they go to turn on their utilities and their lease doesn't start until the next day? Is that fraud? Be careful, okay? Very careful.
Patti, that applies for utilities as well, because I always say you can turn them in the day of the lease, but maybe it's just better to turn it in the day, to turn them on the day
Ask them
before,
to have
so
it
that
the day
way.
the lease starts. That's fine. That's not a problem. Them turning on utilities is not necessarily going to create you an issue.
Okay.
But if
So
they get hurt on the property the day they move in and they're not in contract, that's a problem. I had a
Julia?
tenant move in and fall down the stairs and break her leg the same day she moved into the property.
Wow.
Things happen. Okay.
Julia, what I have is I have the landlord has a contract with all the utilities. So that you're not without power or whatever.
Yep. Having the utilities is a non-issue. The reason I mentioned utilities is some utility companies will not provide or turn on service until the tenant provides a signed contract. That's why I'm saying that.
Was that Arlene who was saying that?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Arlene
Are you
speaking.
talking about the continuous service agreement?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I had that, but then Patti gave, shed light on probably not doing that. So then I stopped doing that, but I did like it for the time being, but we
Right. So let's
turned
talk
that
about
off.
Patti's opinion with continuous service, because now that's going to raise a bunch of questions. Wait, what are you talking about? We're talking about when you have, and I'm going to use the electric company as an example because it's a good one, okay? We're talking about, if the utilities ever shut off because the tenant's moving out, that it automatically reverts into the owner's name and the bill goes to the owner. What that does is make it easy for us for clean and shows, right? We don't have to call the utility company every time a tenant moves in or out to change the bill. It just automatically goes on in our name. That works great in some demographics. In other demographics, it is a double-edged sword. And let me explain, okay? If you own property in low-income areas, okay? And that's the best way I could say it. Forgive me. If your tenant doesn't pay the electric bill and their electricity gets shut off for non-payment, it automatically comes back on. It doesn't even get shut off, okay? But on paper, it's shut off and it comes on in your name. Only the electric bill only comes out every 2 months. So now they've lived in there for 60 days before you get a bill and go, wait a minute, what happened? Huh? But now the electricity's on in your name. And from a legal standpoint, you can't shut it off while a tenant is in possession. Oh, see where that would be a problem in an eviction matter? So having that continuous service agreement will bite you in a bad situation badly. Can you imagine if you were evicting your tenant, they didn't pay their electricity bill, power comes back on immediately in your name, you're now responsible for the bill and you can't shut it off because there's a tenant in possession, and that creates a habitability issue. So now they're running the air conditioner with the windows open, and who's responsible to pay the bill? Continuous service agreements don't always work. It has to, I don't do them for that reason alone. Because now I can't shut off the power. I can't. You can't revert it. You can't. You can't do anything but pay the bill and smile. So that's why I don't use continual service agreements. I hope that makes sense to you. It's a business decision and you guys all need to do what works best for you. But that's the why behind why I tell you don't do it.
So do you put it in your name? Let's say the tenant's moving out, but you don't have a new tenant. You have work to be done.
I
Yeah,
turn it on as a clean and show. And then before the new tenant moves in, I have it turned off. So I'm not stuck with a bill.
So there's something called clean and show?
Clean and show. Yes.
Not anymore, Patty. They don't offer it anymore. They
In
don't
some,
offer.
hold on. In some cities they do because they still offer it in Riverside and San Bernardino County.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm in LA County. LA County, they don't offer.
Baby, you're in the devil's cauldron.
That's right.
That's right. But in other counties, they do allow clean and show, just so you know. In LA, they do not. You're absolutely correct. PG&E doesn't allow a clean and show. Southern California Edison will allow a clean and show. San Bernardino County allows clean and show for gas, water, and power. Gas, water, and power. Some municipalities, meaning cities that govern you, require that you have trash service turned on even if your property is vacant. That would be Victorville, Apple Valley. Want me to keep going?
Is there a limit of time that clean and show is good? Or is it only like 30 days or something? Or
Honey, I used one for a year once while we rehabbed a property.
okay.
Clean and show. In other words, somebody's not actively living there. We're just showing the property and cleaning the property. You end up with a different rate too, just so you know. Teaching you all my tricks. But Lorena's right. LA County absolutely won't do a clean and show. They want something more solid. And in LA County, I absolutely would not have a continual service agreement. Absolutely not in LA County. I would be shutting off all the utilities the day before the tenant moved in, notifying them that if they didn't want to pay turn-on fees, they should transfer the utility into their name prior to the move-in date, because I'm going to have the utilities shut off the day before. And that's how I handle it. That way, if they did a transfer and the utilities still on the day I move them in, I know what they did. And if the gas company's standing there waiting at the door when I'm meeting them to give them the keys, I know that they didn't meet the gas company in time. But they avoid a turn-on fee that way. Save them $100. It's all good. They appreciate you when you do things like that and encourage them. They do. It's a great way to start building the relationship. All right, I got a lot of stuff to hang. Anybody else have questions for today? I saw something else come through. Oh, for an ADU, not necessary, Julia. Why would an ADU be subject to AB 1482 prior to 15 years? Tell me why.
Wait, can you repeat the question?
Why would an ADU be subject to rent control prior to the 15 years? Because the landlord failed to disclose.
Oh, but this is I mean, like we just did the ADU. So as long as I disclose it, then we're
As long as
good.
you disclose in there when that inception date is of rent control, you're good.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
If the landlord doesn't disclose that they're exempt until that date, they're subject to rent control.
I
Oh,
have a question.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, just one last thing. But the front house was already there existing, and then we did an ADU in the back. So yes, I get that for the one, the ADU in the back, as long as
So the front unit immediately has rent control on it. The
That's-
second the ADU got a certificate of occupancy. The front unit
why?
gets, because now you have two on a lot.
Oh,
That's why.
but I
so that-
disclosed it.
Doesn't
Okay.
matter.
The front
Oh,
house, the second you have the certificate of occupancy on the ADU, the front house now has rent control.
oh, gotcha. Okay. All right,
Okay.
thank you.
The ADU gets it in 15 years.
Exempt for 15 years if the landlord disclosed that it's exempt until that date.
Yeah, I'll make sure to do that. Thank you.
If you don't disclose, you're subject to, but the house immediately has rent control. Statewide rent control, just so everybody knows exactly what we're discussing.
Thank you.
No
How do you
problem.
disclose? How do you disclose about the ADU? Just like when you sign the lease of the ADU?
Yes. What forms do you use right now? Car forms, CAA, AGLA, what do you use?
I use mostly CAA, a few AGLA.
Okay, on the first page of the CAA lease, it's on the first two pages. The very
Yeah,
first one says it's exempt, it's subject to, or it's subject to on this date. The ADU would be subject to on the 15 years and 1 month of after date of completion.
Got it. Thank you.
No problem.
Patty, in regards to the ADU, what if it's a garage conversion that's attached to the home and it's not detached? Do you still get the exemption for the 15 years?
Yes.
Okay.
But the house immediately just immediately don't think of it as an ADU, think of it as a duplex. Did that help
Okay.
you? Only the new duplex is exempt for 15 years, and the duplex that's been there forever immediately has rent control
Got it.
on the state level, so that
So
nobody gets confused with LARSO, DCBA, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. So now I just get stuck with the just cause
On the house
on the big house. Yeah. On the main house is
and
now.
the rent cap, the whole statewide fits you.
Got it.
Pause, rent cap, all of it. The ADU is exempt until 15 years, 1 month. If you disclose it. If you don't disclose it, you have.
Yeah. I used the CAA forms that you told me about, and it did ask, it prompted me to put the date in there.
That's why.
Yep. Thank you for that.
Hey, you guys ask me, why do you do it this way? Or why do you, I always send you to the same way I would do it. And then when it all comes in front of you and you go, oh, I get it now. It just makes me happy because you didn't have to jump through hoops to try to figure that out yourself. I kind of drove you right to the on-ramp. I love that. That is what makes me so happy. Oh, the Devil's Cauldron. Got you. That's what it was in reference to. Yes, I call LA County the Devil's Cauldron because it's a cross between a devil and a witch. And every time the wind blows, we don't know which one's in control. But at the end of the day, they're both screwed up. So, hey, it's just the Devil's Cauldron. You never know which way it's going.
I popped on the call a little late. Did you guys address the new construction rent control caps that they're trying to pass? Is that something that you
Are
think
you
is going-
discussing 1157, which changes statewide rent control and caps it at 5%? Because that was withdrawn last week. That's no longer a threat to us at this time.
No, this is the new construction for rebuilding after a like a fire flood.
Like a
Yep.
fire? Oh,
Yep.
they're going to make a new law? Oh,
Yeah, I think, didn't Agla have a red alert? I tried to do something on it, but their website, their email was kind of lacking about, I needed idiot proof. I like the way CAA does it.
Yeah.
Like here, click here.
Yeah, they
It's,
want you to call your senators.
Yeah, I know, but there was a thing about once you have your senator, once you have their name, click here, and like there was no link to anything. So
Yeah.
I already know the name of my state senator. I'm
Oh,
engaged
look
enough.
at you.
Well, I mean, I don't think he
You
ever
must be
listens to me, but I may soon be somebody that actually know the name of by getting enough letters.
Wait, do I want to run for senator? Maybe they'll listen to me. I'll use my property management voice. I'm being funny. I don't think I could ever run for political office. I get so frustrated at a certain point. I think we all do, I call it my bullshit meter. Okay. And it gets full. And then there comes a point where business professionalism is out the window and mama bear's coming after you. And and everybody can relate to me, I'm sure. Some people call it the B switch, you flip that switch. Well, I'm pretty good with it and you can handle me for so long. And then I just, like everybody else, we have a breaking point, right? And mine comes out in verbal vomit and foul language. My dad was a sailor and he wanted a boy. What can I say? But mine comes out in foul language. We all have that moment where we just are at tilt, and I couldn't be in politics for that reason. I know better. I would call them all a bunch of inappropriate names for thinking the way that they do, and that would be the end of my career.
Not necessarily in the social media age. You might not ever be able to work. You might not ever be able to work in real property management again, but you might be electable for a long time.
Hey, at least my Widgets Way followers would be like, we're still following you.
No, their plans and strategies to try and make it a little more balanced, shall we say, because as you may know, the legislation that it tends to affect us most is state and local,
Absolutely.
more than federal. So there's people plotting and scheming and trying to, let's say, balance out California a little more because they're starting to get tired of it.
And those of you that are recipients of Section 8 housing, meaning you're a landlord that gets Section 8 payments, I got a feeling there's going to be some huge changes in the way that Section 8 is ran, probably all part of President Trump's attempt to clean out the crap. Don't quote me to any, not trying to be political. I'm just talking to you, okay? I got a feeling that we're going to see some changes coming about on how the Section 8 program is ran. I got a feeling they're going to be cleaning the gimmies out of the system. It may be a little hiccup and a little rough for us that are participating in that program. So I'm telling you in advance so that you can mentally and financially prepare yourself. My guess is that it will happen by the end of the year, not next month, okay? But let me talk to you guys. Oh, see, Julia's going to say my tenants were already dropped. Check this out, okay? And follow along. For those of us that have done Section 8 for the past 10 years, listen to me because what I'm going to say is going to make sense. 10 years ago, we saw Section 8 paying 90% of a tenant's rent. Now we see him paying half to a quarter. That change happened in the last 5 years. We saw it come about when COVID hit us. All of a sudden, the MAP amounts started changing. Where Section 8 was paying 90% of the tenant's rent, it went to 70%, and the tenant became more responsible for more of the rent. And Section 8 payments went down. Right now, we aren't seeing anybody that has more than half of their rent being paid. Nobody's arguing. Nobody's arguing with me. We're seeing that it's half or a quarter of the rent that Section 8 is paying. They're not paying the full amount anymore. They're already weaning them off the system. They have been for years. Okay, you know that. Now that I said it, it makes sense to you. You're like, hey, you know what? Patty's right. It's been changing for the last 5 years. It's been going down, and you're right. It's exactly what's happened. The government is training those tenants to pay more of their rent. They have been for 5 years. We saw it start happening at the beginning of COVID. Now I got dead silence, which means people are going, yep, that makes sense. I'm not gonna argue. But yeah.
I had raised my hand, Patty.
Oh, go, baby. April, just so everybody knows, April is our Section 8 guru. If you have something going on with Section 8, it's a huge help. What you got, girl?
And you know, you're absolutely right. But they had to put in protections first for Section 8 tenants before. It's a struggle dealing with the population that Section 8 pays a majority of their income.
Yes.
Because that is the most, not the most, but they're the ones on the outliers of society. And it's hard to manage that population. So they had to put in protections for tenants. And, you know, you have to create more group homes and more supportive services and wraparound services. But, you know, that's why we see all these screening protections for tenants and things of that sort. But even still, that population, it's harder to get them housed and keep them housed. And
Yes.
it's easier to deal with someone who, even though they may not earn enough money to pay their rent on their own, but they have a part-time job and they are
Right.
somewhat in control of their household. So yeah, what you're saying is, yeah, and we will see some changes happening in 2026. And yes, they are cleaning the roster of, I ain't gonna say troublemakers, but I don't know the way to say it.
Girl, I have the word. We call them the gimme gimmies because they come in all shapes and sizes, and all they say, gimme, 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 gimme.
Yeah.
So that's what we call them. To be politically correct, they're the gimme gimmies. Okay.
So I'm not running for political office either. So the gimme gimmies are also the ones that let me back up. There's a large population of people that commit fraud and have unauthorized tenants, and the housing authority knew about it, but they needed to keep those numbers for their funding. But now they don't need to keep those numbers for the funding. They can go into that file and pull out all the troublemaker gimmies and the fraud and just go down the list. And you know, so a lot of people who had strong fraud cases, but for some reason owners are thinking, why are you still in Section 8? I know I reported you, I know I caught you, and you don't know why. Now you're seeing that same population, not necessarily the same person, but that same population is being terminated from the program because now they don't need all those people.
Correct. And thank you for trying to be politically correct the same way I am. It's like we walk on eggshells because we don't want to say the wrong thing and upset anybody, but we got to give it a title. So I named them the gimme gimmies.
But didn't they increase the amount of rent?
They have to. That's based on the CPI.
Okay.
I hope that makes sense to you. Look at it this way. If us landlords and property managers just kept raising the rents and they weren't raising the maximum amount for Section 8, they would never qualify to live in a home or an apartment for that matter. So they move it up with the CPI and try to keep it as close to fair market value as possible. Where it becomes tricky is in LA County because certain areas are more high dollar rent than other areas. And it can change by the street block, believe it or not. So it makes it a little bit more challenging when you're in the devil's cauldron. I mean, even though it's in LA County, you wouldn't ask for the same rent in the city of Compton as you would in the city of Santa Monica, right? Just saying. So that's what I meant about different cities. You know, you don't see a lot of Section 8 recipients in Beverly Hills. Just saying. It's not a place where that is used. It isn't utilized there. That particular area has tenants with the financial means to pay those high dollar rents. That's what I was trying to say without being rude in any way, shape, or form. And I probably was, and for that I apologize.
I think that's going to change, Patty, because they're adding 3,000 units in Beverly Hills, and a percentage of those have to be low and low income. So they may start seeing that.
Yeah, all those laws about rebuilding and dedicating low-income housing, how's that going to work in Pacific Palisades?
Well, they better not pass the law about new construction, replacement construction having the same rent control as stuff it will have replaced, or nobody's going to finance the replacing of it.
Yeah,
That
it's
isn't
be a
going to
nightmare.
work.
Yeah.
That isn't going to work, and I'll explain why very quickly, okay? The new certificate of occupancy is going to have a new build date. They can't hold your foot to the fire for how long the lot's been there. What are they going to do? Go back to cowboys and Indians? Come on. You hear me though. That's them throwing something at the wall to see if it sticks with no forward thinking. So with that being said, it might become the law. Just saying. I'm being funny.
So you
Don't-
think that if the law doesn't change, the new stuff that they build will be free of rent control for 15 years?
The new stuff that they build is going to be owner occupied.
Well,
Let's face it.
not apartments.
Apartments, they won't put rent control on a new build apartment.
No, but there's a law that's proposing
They're trying to.
try and put the same rents on on replacement construction.
What
Which
needs
is
to happen is the market
stupid,
needs to
but-
reset itself. The economy needs to take a shit. That's what needs to happen so that we can reset, because we're all setting rents in a false market anyway. We can't keep going at this rate, okay? Everything's going up but people's paychecks. So we keep putting up vacant properties at market value. Market value was higher than what we rented for it before, but people are renting it. So we're taking their money. What's going to happen when this resets and rents come back down to what I'm going to call a reasonable amount? But they won't come back there. They'll go way down the other direction first. They always do. And then they'll come up and they'll balance for a while. And then it'll be the money game. And it's just a vicious cycle, you guys. It's time for the cycle to reboot, reload, and go the other direction for a change. I know I don't want it. None
People
of
have been
us.
saying that for like at least 15 years. And
It's the real estate market crashes every 10 to 15 years like clockwork. And we're past that date. Last time it happened was 07, right? Hello, we're there. So,
but I've also heard some of the federal agencies are playing games like not foreclosing on delinquent mortgages and stuff like that. That they would have done in the past, like that there's something like a couple million federal backed mortgages that they're intentionally not foreclosing on because they don't want to crash the real estate market, as if you could do that.
Bingo, that's exactly what's happening. But there's a bunch of them starting to hit the market. And those real estate agents that watch the market trends can probably pipe in and tell me, yeah, Patty, we're starting to see foreclosures and bank-owned homes hit the market for sale. They are holding their value. They are not being discounted. See, I'm getting it right now. Thank you, Allie. They're holding their value. But at some point, the bank is going to be holding so much real estate owned property, they're going to go, okay, let's start lowering what we're offering. And that's one of the ways that it'll trigger. It triggers in many ways, but we're starting to see more bank-owned properties on the market for sale. That is sign number one. And yes, Chris, I agree with you. Banks are not doing the foreclosure process. I know, I see it out there. They're not foreclosing. They're not even filing notice of default. Okay? So what he's saying is true. So the government and the banks, they're all playing this game of cards. Remember one thing, it can't keep going this way.
I'm sorry. I remember in 2008 and 7 when the market crashed and we lost banks like Countrywide and things of that sort. And a lot of agents thought that the market was going to be flooded with foreclosures, and come to find out, the banks didn't put the property up for sale. They gave it over to a leasing manager, and the banks became landlords instead. And that was a shock Because
They only did that in LA County. In the other counties, they were littered. Every 5 houses, only one of them was a conventional sale. The other 5 were bank owned.
Oh,
That would be
wow.
Riverside County, San Bernardino County. So I get what you're telling me, but know that that varies by county. Because in Riverside, San Bernardino, God, drive through Victorville. 5 houses, the lawns are dead. 1 house, the lawn was green. 5 foreclosures, 1 owner occupied. I mean, you could tell by driving down the street by whose lawn was dead.
I would suspect you're correct, because yeah, I was working as an agent in the LA city, and we were expecting to have the same results that they were having out in Victorville, and we didn't have it. You're right.
Exactly.
You're absolutely right.
Exactly. It varies by demographic area. It varies by county. It varies by all kinds of stuff.
And you had a bunch of private equity run in and start these funds to like manage, which I still don't even understand why you would want to do, manage a portfolio of single family residential houses, right? And so they were outbidding like any small investors. They were buying them like in the hundreds at a time. And yeah, which
Well,
Yeah,
you know,
you're right.
you guys know all those crappy little houses that were for sale, like, and I'll give you some examples. In San Bernardino and in Adelanto, and they wanted 30,000 cash, and they were just junky homes. You know what I'm talking about? I know somebody knows. Yeah, we saw the cream of the crap sitting on the MLS back in '08. You know, those houses for 30 grand, cash only, uninhabitable. Those houses, buy them up, rehab them, collect basic rent. And currently they're worth about 350, 400,000. You guys can polish up an old crappy house real easy, especially if you only buy it for 30 grand.
So are people living in these houses that they're not foreclosing on and not paying anything?
Yes.
That's interesting.
Most of them are owner occupied. No joke. They're just waiting for the storm to come.
some people
So it
are
has
wondering.
affected their credit history at this point.
It has affected their credit history. It affects their credit first, but all it shows now is a delinquent mortgage.
Oh, I see.
You also have student loans that are finally being I think it was several months ago, all of a sudden you had to start making payments again after the COVID hiatus or whatever.
And
But
look
now-
at the debt of our country. I mean,
Right.
it's not just us that are in a bind right now, it's everything. Everyone.
Yeah, my only thing about real estate is I feel like inflation can outpace, you can't raise the rent quick enough, but then also like people still have to have jobs and to be able to pay your rent. So I don't know. I mean, I suppose if your real estate's paid off, you're in a relatively low risk position, but otherwise,
Not a lot of us can say that at this particular point in time. Would be nice, right? Some of us are in a position right now to pull HELOCs so that we can save our assets in other angles where we're having to evict or do something else. So in single family homes, those of us that own single family investments, we know that it's an eye for an eye if the tenant stops paying or there's something like that going on. So some owners are leveraging their investment property to pay for the eviction to get the people out. Got to do what we got to do. It's better than signing title and handing it to them, saying, bye, I'm out. It's a you problem now. It's getting rough, guys, and it's only going to get rougher. If I could tell you something, it would be invest in gold, silver, and wood. Can't afford gold and silver. Go buy wood.
you mean property that's got wood on it?
Well, no, look at it this way. With the building
Oh,
material.
you mean building materials.
Yeah, go buy sheets
Yeah,
of wood,
but-
go buy 2x4s. They're only going to go up in price. Keep them in the rafters of your garage. They're not going to get ruined unless you got a leaky roof or a
The
wood
problem
patch.
with gold is it doesn't yield anything and it costs you money to have it guarded.
Unless you just mold it all together and use it as a doorstop.
I'm a big fan of putting it into bricks in your fireplace, but
I knew somebody with a funky doorstop. It was painted with black spray paint. It was ugly. It was solid gold. Nobody knew. It was ugly. It was a doorstop. Bitcoin. Cryptocurrency is very popular. My son knows quite a bit about it. I do not, so I'm not going to say a whole lot about cryptocurrency other than somebody is trying to call us. Okay, I kicked myself out of the webinar. There's a first. You need me? I'm live.
You're live.
I'm live.
Ooh.
There's
Live.
like a bunch of people on here. Like, do you need me?
No, I just needed some verification on what these kids got.
Oh, they have the books over there. Sorry, everybody. All right. Anybody else have any questions for me today? I got distracted. I'm sorry. First, I kicked myself out of the webinar. Good God. I am blonde, right? It is pretty funny. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, it is pretty.
Okay. That was crazy for a minute. All right. Anybody else have anything for me? Lorena, I have something for you we need to talk about, so I'll call you tomorrow. If I don't call you, text me. I got something for you, girl.
Okay, I'll call you.
Yeah, you'll want this one. Trust me, you'll want this one.
Oh,
Patty?
wait, I have something actually.
Okay, I heard questions.
But
So I heard
somebody went before me.
Okay, next.
I have a tenant who was moved in 12 years ago with a wife and two children. The wife passed away, and about 5 years later, he got married, and then they had two more children. And I happened to see the current wife is expecting again. This is a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom house, about 1,000 square feet.
Do you have an occupancy limit on the lease contract?
I do. I do
Okay.
a 4-person occupancy limit. I talked to him.
What city is it in?
It's in DCBA Bellflower, which is an incorporated city in LA County.
And you let him know that he's over his amount or that he's over his occupancy limits?
I did. I went to his house on Saturday and said that I needed him to move, that this is, unacceptable. He's storing a lot of possessions outside. Sometimes the mother-in-law comes and stays, so then there's going to be 8 people. So what he told me, I think, is like a coded message that if I pay him $30,000, he'll move. Otherwise, he wants a year to move.
Unfortunately, he's in violation of his written lease contract because he's over the occupancy limit, and you could serve him with a 3-day notice to cure or quit. And if he doesn't correct the violation, you would talk to your legal counsel because it's based on area, how many times you have to do a cure or quit before you do the quit. Example, in Riverside and San Bernardino County, if I have unauthorized occupants in the property, I'm serving a cure or quit. If they don't cure it in 3 days, I'm serving a 3-day quit, get out, you can't fix this. But in LA County, your attorney may want you to serve 5. Where'd you guys go? Did I push the right button? I did. There you are. You need to serve 5 curables before you do the quit. And in some areas like LA City, they want 7 curables before you do a quit. So if you're going to go after the nuisance, you need to talk to your legal counsel before you do anything. But that is how I would handle it, is I would be calling legal counsel to asking them if this is a case they want to take, what my probability is on being successful in that case. Key question we need to ask, because we don't want to spend good money after bad. With that being said, that's how I would attack it. And I would serve him a 3-day just to prove that I could. And he's in violation of his contract and I'm not paying him $30,000. You're in violation of your contract and at risk of being evicted.
Okay, super. Thank you very much. That's awesome.
Remember me though, I go straight for the jugular 9
Right.
times out of 10. So sometimes don't take the very first answer I got. What I told you is extremely aggressive.
Well,
I
you know,
am extremely aggressive. You guys need to know that.
I've had lots of conversations about the unsightly condition of the outside of his house. So it's time to be serious.
I completely and totally understand. I try to tell you guys, remember, I'm extremely aggressive. And the reason I say that is I worked in a law firm for 10 years where we did evictions. So when somebody comes to me and goes, this is my problem, my brain is trying to find the quickest way to evict them as possible. And that is how I am trained.
Yay, thanks.
So I have a question that I realized I have, and since you're hanging pictures today, I'm not going to call you and bug you. So with this single family residence, tenant complains of rodents. Fine, we got an exterminator to do an inspection, come out. They're going to seal up all the holes. They're going to put traps and come back for several months on a contract. But the tenant complained about spiders in the house. And I think has attempted to sign up for something with our money, of course, to deal with spiders.
You still have to deal with spiders. It's still considered vermin in the eyes of the court.
Okay.
I know
Seems
you're going to
a little
ask
ridiculous,
me,
but we'll do it.
you're going to ask, yeah, what happens if one of those spiders bites them, causes a problem, and now what's your liability?
Well, that's a part of what insurance is for. But
Yeah, I know, but I gotta.
I just, I come from an age where you get your boyfriend to fucking deal with the spider. Sorry, excuse me. You get your boyfriend to go deal with the spider, or your husband, like, and it is just you just man up and deal with it. Not anyway.
My dad wanted a boy. I take care of the spider myself.
Even worse. He was talking to the tech or the guy in front of me and says,
torch, and it does great for black widows around the outside of your house if you just use the food blowtorch. You use it to make a creme brulee. You know what I'm talking about, ladies?
Yeah, but I don't want them lighting.
I don't
want anybody lighting the house on fire.
Well,
but
that's a garden hose, and you're
no,
good.
But even better. So not only does he want that done, which is fine, but then he's like, but if you spray inside, there's nothing's going to be toxic, right? And I'm like, well, and the guy assures him, no, of course not, whatever. And I'm thinking to myself, if you're really that concerned about it, why are you asking for stuff to be sprayed?
I would let him know that he can just stick his finger in the light socket and turn the switch on and nothing will happen to him. Sure. And I strongly suggest that he does that with the 220 hookup for the dryer.
Chris, you know what I do? I have these plug-in things because I didn't want to deal with exterminators, and they work pretty well.
Yeah, of course, he's the one who's like, I'm fine with it. I was fine with the real rodents. I've never seen extensive spiders there.
Oh my God,
deal with spiders.
Playing.
I deal with spiders all the time, and like anyway, he's going to be called Prissy behind his back from now on, because to me that's pretty prissy.
Hey, some voicemail played on my phone, and now I can barely hear anybody. I'm experiencing technical difficulties.
Can you hear me, Patti?
Yeah, but it's I could barely hear you guys.
I just have one quick question.
Okay, what you got?
I did my preventative maintenance walkthrough a few weeks ago, and the shower all the grout and stuff was black. So I notified the tenant who's been out of town for 6 weeks. He just got back on Saturday. So yesterday I posted a 24-hour notice that I'm coming in on Saturday to inspect. And if it's not No.
California Civil Code 1954 is in regards to reasonable times to enter. It is Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., non-holiday, non-weekend. So if they agree to let you in, you're fine, but don't serve notices to enter on a weekend or a holiday. It makes you look real bad.
Okay. Because that's when he usually likes it. Because he
I get what you're telling me, and I
Okay.
know how you do business, and I'm okay
Okay.
with that. But
Okay.
I'm talking in general for everybody else.
Okay. So what do I do? Put the Friday and then
No, he
and then
told
call
you you
him?
could come in. If he's not telling you you can't come in, don't worry about it.
Okay, he hasn't told me. Okay, so if I go in and it's fine, great, and I'll just send him an email saying thank you for cleaning the property and
Don't even send an email or even respond. Why do
what
we want to
but what do I
thank
do? What
somebody?
do I,
We don't need to thank somebody for wiping their own butt these days, do we? I'm just asking.
well, I just wanted to have some documentation.
Well, look at
Or
it this way. If he doesn't do it, it would be a cure or quit, right?
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you. So if it's still filthy, then what?
Cure or quit.
Okay.
Look at it this way, and this is for everybody, and I still can't hear it real good, so I'm gonna get off of here after this because it's not fair to you guys, and nobody wants to look in my ear all day. Okay. Reel me back in. We're talking about what?
The
Because it's on
shower.
the tip
Cure
of
or
my
quit. 3-day cure or quit.
Okay. There are two different kinds of notices you're going to use as a landlord for a lease violation. Okay. One of them is a 3-day pay rent or quit. The other one is a 3-day cure or quit. Also known as a curable breach of covenant. Cure or quit is property management slang. It is technically and legally called a 3-day curable breach of covenant notice. Covenants are all those little things in your lease contract, and one of those things they did wrong, so they breached it. Does that make sense? But for short, we call it a cure or quit. So for the most part, you're going to use a pay rent or quit or a cure or quit for anything that you do other than a notice to enter. Those are the two documents you'll use most. One is for rent and only rent. Everything else goes on a curable. Unless, of course, you have Section 8 tenants, then it's a 30-day pay rent or quit, a 30-day cure or quit. Anytime you're asking for money and it's federally funded, it gets 30 days, not 3. Okay, I'm going to get off of here. If anybody has anything else, feel free to email me, text me, call me, whatever you guys need to get a hold of me. I'd love to chat with you guys. But today I'm going to go hang some artwork, okay? All right, everybody. I will let you know when the fair's open and if you want to come up. We'd love to see you. Bye, everybody. Have a great week.
Bye-bye. Thanks.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.